Haul the roll and go. Where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we are in St. Joseph, Missouri again. We were here yesterday and was able to get a few podcasts, but today we are in another museum that I think will be extremely interesting because it's such an important part of history, even though it was just a small section, but everybody knows about it. We are at the Pony Express Museum in St. Joseph, Missouri, and Cindy is the host that's going to be talking to us today, and she's going to take us through this museum. Just from walking in and taking a quick look around, I can tell that this is going to be an exciting museum and a fun museum for families. Welcome, Cindy, to Where Am I to Go podcast.
Well, exciting enough, yesterday was April the 3rd, so that was 163 years ago, right inside here. Inside this building is where they left out to start that piece of history called the Pony Express, going across our country for 18 months.
It started on April 3rd?
Yep, so it was yesterday.
Wow. Even though the podcast isn't going to come out for a while, what an honor to be here right at its birthday.
Yeah, so yesterday we were able to celebrate families and peoples and legacies and legends. For instance, the Getz family and all the things that, in 1950 he bought this building. It was falling in disarray. But to start out, it was built in 1858. When's the Pony Express occupy it? 1860.
Okay, 1858?
It was when the building was built.
In 1858. Okay, and the Pony Express only ran for 2 years, right?
18 months.
18 months. Didn't even quite make it.
No.
But boy, it plays a big part of history.
Well, because there was this huge hunger for what? Communication. You've got all these people in California, and what do they want? They want to communicate to their families back east. And, there were some businessmen going on. So, when you think about all the pieces that went on in that time, like, how's my business? And then people are like, I'm going to go make my wealth, my money, and I'm going to send you money. And, so just the communication that would have went on. And guess what? 2,000 miles separated Missouri and California. There's the wilderness. California's out there, and people are like, oh, we're eager. How can we do this? How can we do this? Well, Russell, Majors, and Waddell, they've been doing the freight liners. They've been doing stuff for the military guys, hauling things to the forts. They had a good idea of what that terrain was like. But one guy, Fricklin, who was with the Pony Express, talked to him and said, you know what? I think if we do this, which is we take part of the trail, figure out how to go 7 to 15 miles, get us a fresh horse, then 75 to 100, we'll stop like a home station and we'll wait, let that mail go, and it comes back, then we'll take it back that way. So that was the ingenious idea of how they got this mail across the country, was by doing it by horseback. And, a lot of people say, well, that's kind of exciting. Well, guess what? Horses were kind of expensive, and we know that they were looking for the what? The best and the fast. So they picked them to fit the terrain. They picked the Mustangs for out west. They picked the Pintos in the middle, and they picked the Morgans and the Thoroughbreds because they were a sturdy bunch, okay? It took some really strong lungs for those guys to travel in that flatland. Well, also the idea is nobody's shooting at me.
Right.
In this part, but the other part, hey, there's Indians. So it took a different caliber of people all across the country. And so we know that as these guys were doing it, what were the restrictions? Well, couldn't weigh over 125, okay? 20 pounds of mail in that mochilla. And we know that when the mail came on the what? On the train coming to St. Joe, because that's what brought the mail, was the Hannibal St. Joseph, bringing it right here to St. Joe. Now, according to all of the papers, it said precisely at 4:30 it was to be in St. Joe. Well, they hit Hannibal, it's late. So they said, well, we're going to issue orders, run wild to St. Joseph, Missouri. Well, what that means is I'm not going to go no 30, 35 on that track. I can go up to 60, maybe even 70. The guy stoking the old engine told him, he said, I've hit my head so many times, you have to tell me where I'm at. Okay?
Wow.
But, the fun part is what's the history about a train? 30 miles an hour, it's going to blow a hog just right out of the way, those wild hogs. But the next day, the newspaper said, rain and hogs all the way to St. Joseph, Missouri. Why? Because at 70, it's blowing them in the air. So, it's just really fun how they took one grasping moment and turned it into a fun readership. We do the same thing today.
Oh, yeah.
But really it makes it stick into your mind. I think about the guys leaving out of here. Some of them were very young. The youngest rider was 11.
Was 11?
11. His name was Bronco Charlie. He was at one of the stations, and him and his father were watching it. Well, what do we know about the trail, okay? My pony might know the way, but I could know the way too. But who knows it the best is my pony. Because once he knows where his food is at, he knows where he's going.
Right.
So I could sit there and practically fall asleep, but guess what? He's going to get me to my destination.
Right.
Okay? So if I wanted to keep track of him, I branded him. They branded him with an XP, which you'll see in a lot of things in St. Joseph on the shirts of some of the policemen. XP stands for the Express Pony. So
Okay.
they even named him the Express Pony because he was express fast. So there's where kind of the tale of the horse comes in. Then we talk about the rider and all the different things that a rider had to do. Well, you think about it. At a relay station, they gave him 2 minutes, okay? So they put a thing called a mochilla on top of the saddle. Now, the saddle, we actually talk about it being called a hope saddle. I think they hoped it got a little more padding because that would have been a really good idea at the time.
Yes.
But once you put the mochila on it, one guy that rode for us doing some stuff for the Pony Express said, Cindy, that's the most uncomfortable thing. I think I've about broke it in after 2 weeks of doing this filming. I said, well, that's good news. The kids will like it better too. He goes, absolutely. So, we put it down. And, there's nothing better than coming to an experience at a museum. Wow, I got onto a saddle. I got on just like a pony rider. I had me a mochila. I moved it. Well, you have to remember that mochila had restrictions. It had 20 pounds. I told the kids, if I put 20 pounds in it, you're probably not picking it up to move it.
Not very easy.
No. So, but think about how many of you are 11, okay? Well, one of those guys was, So he got to do, when they said, there's no one here to go, the father said, well, my son knows the way. And they said, well, that's great. Okay, we'll hire him. Okay, you go do it, Well, the father said, give it heck, son. Head right out of here. Well, did he? Oh, yes, he did. And at age 81, he's the only man that said, I want to do what? I'm going to go from New York to San Francisco, and I'm going to carry a letter 4,000 miles on my own to finish my bucket list.
Really?
So when he gets to California, he said, well, I'm done. He said, they said, well, Bronco, what you going to do? He said, well, I'm going to sell my horse and get on the train. I'm going back to New York. They said, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm kind of retired. I don't know. And they said he gets there. He goes to Chapman Museum. He said, I'm kind of bored. He said, I need something to do, and I can whittle. They said, well, you want to come whittle at the museum? So he whittles, puts his stuff. He's got a horse, and we had one here when we first opened this exhibit. And he actually had a hand, and the hand moved, and you put his hat on, or the hand moved, and it took it off. So
Really?
He told all the stories of the Pony Express riders and kept these children entertained at the Chapman Museum. Now, who was the longest living rider? Him. He never passed away until 1955.
Really?
Now, who did he correspond with in St. Joe? Well, good old Mabel Loving lived here in St. Joe, and she was a great historian. So she said in 1900, she rode all across the country and said, hey, you rode for the Pony Express, you correspond with me. So all these guys start corresponding. Well, the next thing I knew, I come to work here, and everybody said, Cindy, I want that book, Pony Express Rides On. I said, funny you should ask, because I can't find that book anywhere. Well, I've heard about it, Cindy, and I really want one. I said, well, until I can find one, neither one of us got one, okay? Little did I know I had one upstairs. I just didn't know it, okay? And so, I don't know, it's probably been 9-10 years ago, one of the guys on my board said, Cindy, you've been yakking about that book, Pony Express Rides On. I go, yeah, because I'd like to know. He said, well, you better sit down in a chair, because I'm going to tell you that Mabel Loving, when she passed away, left enough money in her estate to the librarian, and the lady finished the book. So she had all the chapters. There are actually 2 missing. We never did find them, okay? But her original manuscript and all the letters written by the Pony Riders to Mabel Loving was in a bank vault.
Really?
They're now in our possession. So we can now tell, I hope someday, the second edition of that book to really talk about what the writers wrote back and forth. Most of the time they wrote at Christmas time. There were different things in it. But I think the most challenging thing, when you get something that belongs to someone and we're standing here with it in your hand, my hand was going like, oh my gosh. And then I open it and I go, oh my gosh, this lady went to a total eclipse, okay? She went in 1916. So here we are in 2017 going to experience it. And I'm like, oh, this is just uncool. So I'm opening it up and it said, oh, the chickens are going to do this. And then I'll never forget, because it says, I get on the train, I get to Kansas City, and it says, oh, your train embarkment shall be late. And she goes, well, I shall engage myself a driver, and I shall get myself to Kansas, okay? So she gets herself to Kansas, this lady does. I don't know if she's married. I never did figure all that piece out yet. But needless to say, then she talks about who the scientists were, who she got to say in the all the stuff that she looked at. She said, now you beware, because them chickens are going to be all messed up. And then them animals, it's going to turn dark and all this stuff. And I'm going, oh, I heard about it, but this is real. So I took her book, copied it, and I sold it at our thing on 2017. I sold all of them I had because it showed her picture and told her story in her own handwriting. And what we thought people couldn't read, we corresponded on the other side. But it was so amazing because people said, this is it. So if I keep this book, here it is, me, and now it'll go to my grandchildren. How exciting. But why? Because for the first time ever, the total eclipse followed the Pony Express Trail. It's where two trails cross. So at that time period, that's how come we called it the Pony Express, where the two trails cross. I was asked to go to Colorado, make a presentation, and we did. And we talked about how all this stuff happened, what happened here, happened along the way. I mean, in one day, we had 5,230 people through this building.
Wow. Now, do you still have that book in print, or did you sell all the copies?
I have one.
Only one?
I have one left. Yeah, I found one the other day. I probably have more. It's just probably gotten covered up with my stuff. I have a safe, but we're moving part of our artifacts to a new building.
Okay.
So when I uncover everything, I will find it, and so I'll see if I can find it. But it was just totally exciting to figure out what 100 years later looks like, and then to hear families say, well, I'm buying it because they wrote their experience. See, the thing was designed in the back. You write your experience for the day, then you pass it on to the next generation. So therefore, 3 generations will now have had an experience of a total eclipse.
Wow.
And so it was pretty phenomenal. And, I told people, I said, the stools didn't plug up. I didn't run out of toilet paper. However, we got a phone call that said, you are burning up the terminal down there at the credit card. Cindy, is there something going on? I said, yeah, we're selling like crazy. They said, well, something was wrong because you never do that. I said, well, I don't often have 5,000 people.
Yeah, come to your door.
They stood out the door to go through. But people were so kind and polite. And, I think we had upwards of, it was almost 40 states in 3 days.
Wow.
Coming through here.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was. And it was really fun. But, I think people gravitate to what they learned in the 3rd grade.
Right.
A lot of people touched on it. A lot of people are like, well, I remember in my 3rd grade. And there's a lot of people who came back to visit family. One lady said, I started out with 2 people in my house and I ended up with 49 between my driveway and the backyard.
Wow.
Because every time they'd find out that she had something going on and then all these events were in the city, I even got me a motorhome and rented one to have it because I didn't think I'd ever get home and get back. So I stayed right on property, because there was threats that, you'd be stuck in traffic forever. So,
right.
It's just kind of exciting how things kind of lay out.
Yeah.
And so for me, to be here and to actually know that all this stuff really happened right where I'm standing. And, I think about when I came, we were going to do some things. Well, in 2007 and 8, we did a capital campaign. Well, why? Because in 2010, it's going to be 150th anniversary. Okay. Well, we really wanted to play this up. And so we were going to change up the museum because all you saw over here was a butt end of horses. And I said, Dick, that's about the most boring thing. If I was a kid, I'd say, wow, that is really a great day. I see a horse's butt. No, that's not what I want to do. So I said, we got to tell the story, So then we went after the St. Joseph Museum because this originally was the St. Joseph Museum. And then my board president went on their board in 1983, and they said, Dick, why'd you come on? Because I want to be able to break apart and do what my father-in-law believed in, carry on his mission and open, and I want a Pony Express Museum, no longer the other way. So that's where the separation comes for us to stand alone as a Pony Express. So we have things from the family from the time period, but we're able to have it on loan. So we're very grateful for the St. Joseph Museum to allow us to keep our artifacts here because you got to tell a story. I can't tell a story if I don't have the pieces to build the pie. Right.
Well, and the story's not all that interesting if you can't see the pie.
No,
right.
No.
Telling me about how good it was just doesn't really cut it.
No, And then, sometimes when I'm giving a tour, which is at least 2, sometimes 3 generations deep, you've got all kinds of different learning and hearing.
Oh, yeah.
And so by going, I'm really lucky the museum board has sent me to conferences, so I learned about QR codes. And here about 3 years ago, the kids called and I said, Cindy, we're coming to the museum because we studied westward expansion. I get off the phone, I go, westward expansion? Well, how stupid are we? because we have westward expansion all throughout the museum. So I went after paper ones that were westward expansion, and lo and behold, those kids that day had to back out because the school forgot to get the bus driver, and they didn't have a bus driver. But luckily, there were kids in here. And so this young boy was standing right there, and I said, well, son, how'd you do today? He goes, well, Miss Cindy. He said, I see your name. I said, yeah. And I said, yeah, Miss Cindy, that's a good term. He said, well, I just got something to tell you. He said, I'm telling you. He said, them QR codes, because I could read. And then if I got stumped, he said, well, I just get my mom's phone, and I'd put it over there, and it'd just talk to me. That was pretty cool. And then there's that westward expansion that I studied in a book, so everything starts going together like that. And he said, wow, Cindy, this is really a cool place. This really rocks. It just rocks, you know? And the little girl goes, well, let me say my stuff. So she said, you know, what fun it was to go through and find the things that you have in a book that you think are, well, is this true or is it not true? You know, is this really? And then she goes, it's really history. So, I mean, all of a sudden, the book becomes the history, and this becomes a place to get your history. So what better way to learn it?
Exactly. That's exactly the way I feel about all museums.
Yep.
We've covered lots of different museums, and you can see it's a hands-on. Even if you can't touch all of the displays, it's still a hands-on learning experience because you're seeing it so up close. Yeah. And you know, this guy's back here putting a shoe on a horse. Yeah. You can see how that's done versus looking at it in a book and trying to get a feel. There's not a 3D.
No. Well, I've been here June 1, I'll start my 18th year. And a lot of times if a bus comes, I get stuck with 40 or 50 people. Well, I have this old auctioneer mic that I got to try to talk to. Well, I blast the front row, lose the middle row, and the back never hears anything. Mm-hmm. So a year ago in December, I wrote a grant to two trusts. I said, I only need $13,000. Divided up, it's like $6,600 and some odd dollars between you. I really, really need to get it, okay? So did I get it? Oh, yes, I did.
Oh, good.
So as you come through, you'll see those little lights. So I put on a headset. Oh my, you can hear me in this zone. I go to the next one, I turn it on. And I'll never forget, because one of my first people, they were from Minnesota. And this lady was standing here and I was doing my thing. And I said, well, I hope you all enjoy it. And I said, it's kind of exciting because I've been playing a school marm this morning. And, you know, I just have to tell you that we got I told the lady, you know, I got this McGuffey reader book. It's really fun. But there's a thing called a geography book. It's Ray Mitchell's, and I really, really want that book. And a year ago, I got that book.
Really?
It's 1877 and 1889, and in it are the handwritten notes from Addie Van Zoik, who lives in Andrew County, who would have family still there now today. I have the book. It's now down being preserved. So I was telling them all about this. About that time, this lady goes, can we talk? I said, well, yes, ma'am. What do you need? She said, I've never been on a bus. Got off the bus. And she said, I saw nothing but brick. And I thought, boring. Oh, and then I'm thinking, am I going to learn anything in here? And she said, I walk in, and within 5 minutes, you already have my total attention. I can hear every absolute freaking word you're saying. So I don't really care if I'm in the middle of the pack or the back of the pack. When I see it, I'm going to know it. I just really want to tell you. I'm going to send you them books. So now I have Minnesota's geography books because she sent them to me.
That is so cool.
Because theirs are old too. They're 1880s, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I just will tell you, because I take the kids out to the pony school, and I just want people to know, you know, a lot of times when you step children back into history, you have to take them a little slower. So outside, we walk up and say, you got to make your manners, okay? Now, your mom and your grandpa and all them, they're going to ask me on Sunday, did they make their manners? Because girls on one side, boys on the other in 1860. And I said, you would walk up and say, good morning, Miss Cindy, and you would curtsy. The other side, boys, you're going to say good morning, and you're going to bow. You're going to say, Miss Cindy. Now, if you don't do it, you're not coming in to the pony school. That's just the way that works. So we come in, and we sit down, and I go, you realize you don't do a pledge, right? Pledge is not until 1892. And the kids are like, well, this is 18. I said, what's it say? It says 1860. So are you sitting at a desk? How do you feel? Well, I want you to stand up and follow me with your eyes, because we're going to do Aesop's Fables. Because you see, you don't have any paper at home. And probably the only book you have is one book that probably belongs to the family or from generations of family. You don't have anything else. If you want to write to your parents or whatever, go out in the dirt and write it with a stick, because you don't have another way to do it. There was no money to do it with. So then you start talking about reading and all this stuff. And so I said, geography. They said, what do you want that book? So my very first school, the teacher came in. She'd been coming like 5 years. I said, okay, we're going to step even farther into history. So I want you to pretend like I'm Addie and I'm your teacher today. And they go, really? Oh, yeah. we are going to study geography. So now I'm ready for the first question. So what is geography? Study of what planet? What do you live on? And then they're like, okay, so you have to step out. Well, Miss Cindy, the study of geography would be Earth. Yes, that would be very correct, okay? So then how do you spell the word? And they go, well, no. I said, here's what we'll do. You get your slate board out, you put it at the very top, and right at the top of it, okay, you say it with me, Earth, and then you go E-A-R-T-H. Now say Earth again. Now you better have that written on that slate board because we're moving on to the next question. Are you all ready? And the kids are like, I said, keep up with me because this is the way it's going to be. You got to pay attention, you know. So I said, now what shape is here? I have everything from a ball, whatever. And then this little boy goes, well, Miss Cindy, the shape of the Earth is a sphere. I said, that's exactly what the book says. Good for you. Okay, good job, you know. So I said, now, you know, we're going to do something, but we're going to go back to your reading lesson, okay? So now I want you to take your slate board, okay? And are we going to study the inside of the Earth? Or are we going to study the outside? Which one are we going to study? So we put outside the bottom, spell it out, do its thing. So all of a sudden I said, okay, stand like me, okay? Point that way. What direction are we looking? I said, well, it starts with the end. I finally get north, okay? So I said, now I want you to say this with me with elocution, just like we did when we were reading it. The sun rises in the east. So then we do it and they say the right. Now put your hand here. Well, the sun sets in the west, okay? And so then they do that. And then I said, so now if you turn around, what way are you going? And they go, well, that'd be south. I go, okay. So I had in 7th and 8th grade boys, and I thought, oh, they're going to throw me under the bus. But I just did it. You know what? They come up and they said, Miss Cindy, if somebody taught like that every day, we'd learn something in school.
Isn't that the truth?
He said, I'm telling you, we would learn something. He said, and now, he said, I can't wait to go home and tell my papa, I know which way is north, south, east, and west, because I didn't know until today.
That's awesome.
You know?
Wow,
And
that's
the first
cool.
school said, because I told him, I said, now next week, we're going to study about a body of water. So you get prepared to think about what that body of water is. And the kids are like, teacher, we have to come back next week because she's going to talk about a body of water and we don't know anything about it. We kind of like this geography stuff. You know, it's just funny how you gravitate kids to learn.
Yes.
Know?
And the way that you're doing it with the excitement.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my podcast is make museums
come alive
instead of being boring.
Exactly. Exactly.
So getting back to the Pony Express.
Sure.
Okay, it went for 18 months. How long did it take a wagon train to get from St. Joseph to San Francisco?
Most of the time, they only travel 10 to 15 miles a day. So they're going to be 3 or 4 months getting across that country.
Okay. And
So-
the Pony Express was able to make it how fast?
7 to 14 days.
7 to 14 days. So there was that much.
Depending on the weather, depending on your weather, depending on your snows, and depending on factors of waiting on it, and you know whether an Indian's shooting at one of your friends. It makes a big difference. That slows the world down.
So you were able to get a letter from New York on the train, comes to St. Joseph,
Yep.
and it's 7 days after it hits there. Let's
7
just
to
let's just
14.
round it off and say
10.
12,
We
10,
say
12.
10. That's what we say.
Okay, 10 days. It goes from here to San Francisco.
But actually, it goes to Sacramento.
Sacramento. Okay.
Because that's the ground. Then it goes on the Antelope on a ferry boat, goes across, and then the last 20 to 30 miles is carried by other people who are not hired by the Pony Express.
Okay.
So we've learned that they aren't, according to history.
Okay.
But they take the last leg of it into just exactly what you said is San Francisco, because the cancellation is San Francisco and St. Joseph.
Okay. Now, how many miles a day was each rider required to ride?
It just all depended. There was really no requirements. It was just because every horse was different. Rider, you might have weighed 100 pounds. This guy made 125. It's snowing there. It's raining over here. So what they were trying to do was average what they could across that country. And so,
Okay.
you know, if it came from California and the snow headed this way, that's going to be a slower go. But this flat line here, they make it up. Then when they get slowed down, that's where they could make their steam up.
And they had stops every 15 miles
They
or
had 7
20
to
miles?
15 was a new horse. We called it a fresh mount.
Okay.
And then
And so a
75 to 100, I stopped at a home station and I waited. I sent my mochilla on, and then I waited for my mail to come back, and then I put it on my horse and I would take it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you rode the same section
all the
every
time. Yeah.
every
I never went over 2 usually, because I tried to stay in the territories,
Okay.
because that's almost 200 miles. What do you think about it? That's a long time in the saddle.
That's
Most of the time in the newspaper they said it's 14 hours.
Wow.
In the good days.
Okay, and then there was a couple of rides that were much longer than that.
Exactly.
Like Buffalo Bill did an extremely long ride.
We say that Buffalo Bill probably was a substitute rider because if you look at his weight, he would have been way too heavy to ride all the time.
Oh, really?
Well, that's what we think because that's what the historians say.
Okay.
So they say he would have been probably a substitute rider. Now, we also know that Pony Bob was a rider. His story's told all the time about how he rode and then there was no one there. So they said, we'll pay you $50 more. Then they're going to pay you $150. Well, take that times 30. Was that a lot of moolah? That's what I tell the kids. Oh, yes, it was. So was your mom willing to let you go out? Yes, because she needed the money. If her husband had already went out to the fields, is not sending any money, how did you get by?
Right. And how much did a rider make a month?
These guys made 50. The ones out in the other territory made about 150.
Really?
Some of them 25. All just depended on where you were at and who was the hiring because they had one general superintendent. They had it in 5 divisions. So there were 5 division guys who were in charge. And, a lot of the stories talk about how, hey, today I brought you a barrel of water, brought you 3 horses, one's broke. You wash your hands in scummy, then you keep that good water, you drink it, okay? At the end of the day, you drink you a really, really strong cup of coffee. And at the end of the day, you've been firing that gun, you've been practicing, you pour the rest of it down. You keep that gun clean, okay? And while you're at it, I want the other 2 horses broke. I'll see you when I see you. Because they never knew when they were really coming back.
Right.
So if one of them got rained out or stormed out, they just go to another location. Was it worth building it? No. We say we have one of them in here called the French design. That means I had to build something. So I'm just going to cut down a tree, mud it, put it there, walk away. That's how they put them across the country. Yeah.
Now, were the stage stops, or not stage stops, the Pony Express stops, were they just a single cabin where the one rider stopped, or did they have...
At a home station was a station master, where it would have been the guy with his wife.
Okay.
Because they're cooking, okay? At the other one, I'm by myself.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd just be a station keeper.
And so the station keeper...
It was one guy, lone guy.
Okay.
So that's how come I was so great when the Indians said, oh, looky there, he's got 3 horses. We need 3 ponies, okay? So they're going to come down and try and fight on you. Did they really want you? No. Did they care about the mail? Heck no. All they wanted was them fast ponies because guess what? We were making money. We wanted ours to go across the country fast. And they were infatuated with the Pony Express ponies. So that was one of the reasons that the big thing happened with the Indians. So.
Okay.
Yep.
And the Pony Express was finally terminated when the Transcontinental Railroad came across.
No. When the telegraph, because what they found out was the instant messages were to St. Joe. Okay, so I could send a telegram, I could take a newspaper, I could take a letter, okay, send it across the country. Well, California said, well, this is pretty cool. So Senator Gwynn and all of them said, we're going to start it. So the government subsidizes the Pony Express and then says we're going to start the telegraph. When the telegraph got so far, Abraham Lincoln becomes president. So in 7 days and 17 hours, across the country, they telegraph it. Then every 6 miles is a man with a horse. And the last little bit, they telegraph it in. And that's how they beat their time of the 10 days.
Wow.
Was doing it this way. So they called it the instant messages stopped the Pony Express, which we call the telegrams. Okay.
Okay.
The train doesn't get here till 18, across the country till either 1868, 1869, somewhere in that time period.
Okay.
So see, nobody ever beat the Pony Express till the train got across the country. So because they had to build it, see, and that was a slow because man, everybody wanted a piece of that Pony Express when it was the railroad. So all kinds of problems, people fought about it, and the Indians. Well, one of the things on the instant messages I learned, because several different times people would come through. He was kind of an archaeologist, but he was way about the telegraph. And he said, Cindy, you see that right there? I go, yeah. He said, well, that's called a ram's hook. Well, it is, because it looks like a ram's hook. The wire laid in it, so they would put the telegram with a glass insulator on it. Then they would put the ram's hook. Then they put another one. Well, what happened is the Indians saw the glass. Do they like glass? They make everything they want out of that glass.
Oh, yeah.
So they would go up at night, steal up a pole, drop them down here. They come back the next morning, it was all down. So they found out if they put wooden coverings on them, the Indians couldn't tell the glass was on it, so they just keep right on riding, and that's how they faked them out.
And they didn't cut them down. They didn't cut the poles down for
Oh,
firewood.
No, they just skinnied up. All they wanted was glass.
Oh, I figured maybe they cut up
That,
firewood
according to what
too.
the guy told me, that was really the story behind it. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
just kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot, so a lot of the stories that we've learned, that's how we've kind of tried to link the story. That was the real reason we wanted to do the how in the world, what happened to the writers. Well, you see in 2010 would have been 150 years. So we had this big celebration in the park and here, and we had all kinds of stuff go on. I shall never forget, I went and did an interview, and I think it was on like Good Morning America and something else. Our phone rang off the wall because people wanted us to ship stuff to them.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, so it was really kind of unique. Well, then 5 years later, we said we want to do what? We want to get rid of the debt, and now we want, because they put a second addition on back there to the community room, they wanted to get rid of that, and they had this great idea to build this pony school for another educational wing so you could come in and do more than one thing at this facility. And so the idea was to do that. And so they raised off of what you see behind you right here.
Which is a wall with a whole bunch of horseshoes and name plaques on it.
$475,000 was raised.
Wow.
Yeah, and in it they said, you want a pony school? Well, tell us what you want. And so that's what we did. Retired the debt that they built on the second room. The pony school, I tell people, you're not going to believe it, there's hardly any electricity, no plumbing, but it's $120,000 when it got done.
Wow.
Because,
and what do you do in the pony school?
Well, we play school like it's 1860.
Oh, okay. Like what you were just talking with the kids.
Yeah. So that was a reason, was one more chance to do the education and sink the kids, not just to the pony school, but to that. And then out of it developed our day camp. And so now we do a Pony Express day camp. My dream 10 years ago was to do little bitty kids, preschoolers. We had one last year as a trial run. We're doing another one this year, but a parent has to come with them. And they get to do things like, oh, it's just me and mom or me and dad. The Woodworkers Guild let them put together a car. They got to sit down and listen to a story. They walked through the museum and discovered, as we have it today, designed for them in sensory. And then guess what? They get to go press a penny. And so by the time they left, and then they get a book. And one of my friends, I said, well, how'd it go? And she goes, oh, Cindy. The very next morning, he takes all of his stuff, puts it in his car seat. They're going to preschool. And he gets ready to get out, and he's going to take everything. She said, oh no, son, you can't take that with you. It's not show and tell day. Well, that's not fair. I did all this, and I want to show my friends. She said, well, you're going to have to leave it in the car. Well, I will leave it in my car seat, but I really don't trust you. Because she said, you're going to try and look at it and see what I did, so you can't touch it, because it's mine. It's not yours. It's mine. So it's just really funny how children think about things.
Oh, yeah.
And then how you step them back into time. And, we played some games one time, and I know a lot of grandparents get their kids. And so he sat out there, and he brought him in. He said, now, Miss Cindy, he said, if I'm not here tomorrow, you're probably boring. And, the kids, they won't want to come back. I said, okay, fine. So the very next morning, I'm here about an hour ahead of time, and I look out, and there's his car. So about 15 minutes later, I wave at him, and he comes out, and he goes, Miss Cindy? I go, yeah. I said, well, the boring one is not you, but it's us, okay? So he said, all their friends are here. Well, you see, we do a thing, you're a family. So if you're an eagle, you be an eagle. If you're a bear, you're a bear. If you're an elk, you're an elk. So they are whatever they are. And so the one little boy told me, he said, now I'm a bear, and you cannot make a bear into an elk, and you cannot make him into anything else. So I'm only a bear. You put me back in that bear class, and I will come back. So it's really funny how they gravitate to the family and how they believe into it.
And anybody can come to this school, like somebody from Wyoming, if they were coming to Missouri, they could come hang out for what, a week
days?
or 3 days?
3 days now.
And what's the cost on that?
$35 at this point.
For 3 days?
Mm-hmm. Wow. We try to make it economical so that the kids can come. I get support from a couple of trusts because they all get a T-shirt. That's $11. What they told us after COVID was, it really sucks. We didn't get to come. So we said, okay. So the parents said, keep it outside. So we did, and we sent them home. So we sent a survey home, and you know what it said? You really suck, Cindy, because we didn't sing any songs together, and we didn't eat together. It's not camp. We want our camp back.
Oh.
So we went from 1 day to 2 days, and then this last year they go, it's just really not enough. We just need one more. So to prove my point, we had a boy who I think would have probably been 11 or 12 years old. Well, his mother picks him up, and we never thought about it at the time. We were singing songs and learning them. She picks him up, and he's still singing. She tells me the next morning, Cindy, he sang in the car. I said, could you quit singing? Oh, no, Mom. No. Tomorrow, the lady said I could be the leader if I sing that song. And so he's singing this song because we didn't think to send the words home, okay? So then he's singing the song. She said, are you going to shut up when your dad comes home? Probably not, because I'm serious. I am going to lead that songs in the morning. She goes, okay. So he comes home and he goes, you know what? Okay. I've listened to that song about as many times as I can do. So I'll tell you what, you take the dog, you go outside, I'll get the garden hose, and you wash off the side by side, and you can sing any song you want to the sun, moon, and stars. He's out there, the neighbors are calling. What is your son doing in his underwear singing old Pony Express songs with his dog howling? They said it was priceless. They said, if we were to tell you why, you probably won't believe us, but he's going to lead songs. Who led songs the next morning? He did, because, I mean, he was still ranting. So it's just really interesting to me how kids gravitate to a certain thing to become something. Could he do it anywhere else? No.
Right.
So it's kind of fun.
And when do you run this school?
In July every year. The first full week following the 4th of July, and now we're into the second week.
Oh, wow.
How do you sign up for it? Online?
There's online, and then we have an application form here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking I might sign up and come and just pretend
We
like I'm
need
an
helpers.
11-year-old
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
You need what?
Helpers.
Oh, I thought you said an old person.
No.
Oh.
No, we have helpers. Well, we have people to help at the tables. Because, some of the kids, we had one that was handicapped in a wheelchair. We had another one. And so then just different times. Some of them have got 15 to 20 in a class because we'll take
Wow.
up to 60. So now that we own a whole campus, we own the whole city block now, then we have the ability to do far more.
That
Because
sounds like fun.
It is. Oh,
well,
it is.
Well, let's take a look at your museum
well,
and some of the
come on
different
in, sure.
displays that you've got.
Yeah.
As we come to the left of the entrance desk, the admission desk, which, by the way, your admission was what, $8 a person?
I think that's what it is. And
From
then your
18 to
seniors-
59, it's $8. Senior 60 and above is $7. Students 7 to 17 is $4, and 4 to 6 is $2, and under 3 they get in free.
That's right.
So price is very reasonable. We come on in, you've got a video
Yes.
room on the side that I'm sure talks about history of the Pony
does.
Express, but since we're talking, we'll avoid the video.
Sure.
And the first scene that we come up on is a blacksmith shop, it looks like.
Wheelwright.
There's a wheelwright, okay? And a wheelwright
both.
is the person that made the wheels for the wagons
That's right.
and those types of things.
Yeah.
And there's a guy here fitting a horseshoe, bent over, holding the back leg of a horse up. There's some hand-forged chain, a lot of forge tools, woodworking tools also. And this is a
And the
nice
bellows.
display of what
Yeah.
it would have been like
Yeah.
if you were looking to outfit your horse for
Yep.
anything.
Yep. And then see here we have actually the picture of the guy that owned this. So this is
Okay.
the Hyde family. So it really talks about him, and she talks about, how the bellows. So she said there's a story, Cindy. So he knew that the Civil War was coming. So
Okay.
he writes a letter. But the rule was at the time period, you do not send it to somebody in St. Joe. You send it to family outside of Missouri. And you tell them, I took the end off my bellows and in my anvil here, and I hid all my money, my guns, and jewels. So if I get killed, you come back to St. Joe, take it off, and get out my money, my guns, and jewels.
Right.
About 2 years later, the letter goes to the family and says, hey, don't worry, I outsmarted them. I still got my money, my guns, and my jewels. So they adapted. That's what I tell people all along the way.
Yeah, they had
It's an
to.
adapt-
But we adapt also. I
Yep,
mean,
exactly.
we do our things
Yep,
a little bit different, but
yep.
even old people understand how to use their smartphone to some degree, even
There
though
you
that's
go.
never been in their background.
Right,
So
right. And then this is the exact spot, moment in time on 7:15 p.m., April the 3rd, 1860. The Pony Express left right out of here.
right here.
Right here.
Was
where you're
this
standing.
dirt floor
Yeah,
at the
and
time?
Yeah, and then they put this down so they could have something to set exhibits on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from this very spot, we've got a horse that's a full-sized horse
Mm-hmm.
with a rider on it, saddle, and another man is holding this horse. I'm assuming he's holding it because these horses were not completely broke. They were ready to go full bore.
He's been ready for a long time, and people were picking on him, so they were pulling horse hairs out. Originally, they were in the park. So the story is they came here and waited. So he was rambunctious, ready to get back outside. So that's the reason. We know this is a mochilla. We know there's 4 pockets. 3 of them are going to be locked down. One of them is open because the first time ever, messages from Washington, D.C. will go to the military forts, and the military forts back to Washington, D.C.
Okay. And this conchilla, is that what
Mochilla?
Mochilla. This mochilla is just a leather saddle pad, it looks like, or it goes around the saddle. And has letter side, like a mailbox that's on the outside of your house that is up next to the door.
Yep.
It's got 4 of those for carrying letters. And that's all the more carrying capacity that they had was?
That's right, 20 pounds.
Okay.
So a lot of times when it came into St. Joe, they would have taken an oilcloth, laid it down and covered it up, put it in and then packed it in with the lock. Now, it's not going to unlock until it gets to California.
Okay.
But the open pocket, they could stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they covered it with oilcloth because they were riding through all kinds of weather.
And
Okay, that's cool.
So that was protection to take care of the mail and their way. Yep.
Okay. And then you've got a guy that's ready to open the door and let this guy fly.
Right, and then his paw is holding it for him, and he's going to tell him to head out of here and there. Where they headed to? The river. And it's always fun to say because they cross the Missouri River, they go into what territory? Kansas.
Okay.
Yep. So then after that, the post office is up the street, but the original day, it left right out of here.
Wow.
Heading out.
What a piece of history.
Yeah.
Standing in a piece of history.
Yeah, because I had kids here last week, and I said, you think about April 3rd, I want you to stand just like this, and you say, I'm the pony rider today. Because I said, you've made history if you've been here, because now you really know when it's going to happen.
Exactly.
You know?
Okay, now how heavily armed were these guys? Did they carry...
When they first started out, a guy did research and said a lot of them carried at least 2 Navy Colt revolvers, and some of them carried shotguns. Well, the guys in the flatlands, nobody's going to shoot at them. So they quickly abandoned the shotguns and went back to just the Navy Colts. Now, the guys in the other territory that are being shot at, they made sure they had doubly. Some might have had 1, those guys, but those guys are all going to carry 2. Because once you cleared 1 out, you'd want the other. Much as Pony Bob talks about, you know, he heard stories from one station to another that, oh, in this pass, the Indians are going to be there. He said, well, I got to be prepared. So when he was riding, he knew because he was asked to carry the mail farther. So when he gets to going, you know, he realizes it. Well, he said, oh, I'll get my gun out about that time. And I did meet Pony Bob's family my first year here.
Wow.
And they said, wow, to see his story told here just warms our heart. And I said, well, the story is, you know, that he was shooting about that time. Oh, the arrow went in his arm. All the way to the bone.
Oh, geez.
So I said to the kids, you're going to call 911? Oh, you think you're going to call the ambulance? Maybe you'll think you're going to get some help over there. There's no one. So you're going to grit your teeth, and you're going to pull it out. You're going to use your bandana to wrap it up and hold it, and then you're going to say, get up, horse, let's go. Because the mail must go through. That's what they believed.
Right.
That's what he did. Well, then he gets to one part of the territory, and he's riding. He said, I'm really tired, so I'm just going to rest a little bit. So then he comes back out. He takes off again. He said, I know in this last pass, I know the Indians are there because I've heard tell of it, okay? So he said, I get out my last gun, and about the time I get ready to fire, the arrow takes off 6 of my teeth and most of my right jaw, but I never did quit. I carried my mail 380 miles in 36 hours. You know, so...
How many miles?
380 in 36 hours.
Was that the longest ride?
Yeah, well, some people say whether Buffalo Bill's big ride, but they're both in the same category.
386 miles. Sitting in a saddle.
380, yeah. He rested for a little bit, but most of the time he was up on them, went, and, you know, he just kept going because they were wanting. You know, they took an oath, and, you know, at this time period, I can understand it because if your grandpa said you're going to do this, that's what you did.
Right.
If your grandma said you're going to do that, that's what you did, and you didn't argue. You just did it.
Right.
You know? So I will tell you one of my funnest moments in the last year has been, especially this last little bit. I said, now some of you, you're going to go home and your parents are going to say, I want you to clean up your room, or I want you to clean off the dishes or take the trash out. And don't you dare mumble, don't you do anything, you just say, sure. And then you go do it. Because then you just act like you've been here. And if they ask you, you go, sure. And then when they say, I don't know, I'm just supposed to say sure and do it, okay? Then if you want to explain it, you can. And the kids are like, okay, Cindy, because I said, then you can say what I told you today. You better do a kind deed between now and the time school comes back, because I want to hear about your kind deed in my building. You know, so you got to impress upon them, you know, what you really want. And then they're like, and, you know, I've had teacher after teacher, because we sing song a little bit. I have them come up and recite the reading lesson. This one lady told me, she said, Cindy, the children that relate to you are not the ones in my classroom. She said, you bring out the ones that I've tried to work with or is always so still you don't know what to do. And my prime example of that is I had some kids, and this is March, been in the classroom at Mark Twain. Well, he comes up to, he's a boy, so he's the last one. And I said, son, you got to come in. He just kind of stands there. I said, son, you got to come in. I got to close the door because I got to teach, and you know you got to come in. So she goes, well, Cindy, he's not really participated in my class all year. And I'm going, and this is March? You're telling me now? I said, well, I'll tell you what, son. I've just about done my deed today, so I'm going to tell you, I just want you to walk in here, sit down, sit on that back bench, put your head down, and I don't want you to do anything. You just pay attention to you, and I'll do my thing. Close that door. Now you get in here. About that time, he walks in, the kids are like, you know, so we're doing our thing, you know. About that time, I hit my hands. I said, sometimes I tell people, I just kind of let the good Lord and I kind of travel the path. And so I hit my hands, and I said, oh, students, do you realize today is Wednesday? Why, you have spelling bee on Friday, and you are so unprepared. We must practice those spelling words. About that time, he steps up out of the desk. Miss Cindy, you knew the rules. Miss Cindy, just exactly what's a spelling bee. And the kids are like, did you hear him? He's talking. He's talking. You know, so I'm like, okay, well, really. So I explained to him how the girls on one side, boys on the other. I'm going to call a word, and you step up, you say the word, spell the word, say the word, you can sit down. And I said, you want to do that? He goes, yes, I do. So the kids are like, oh. So they're all kind of muttering among themselves. I call the word for the girls. They do it. I call his. He's standing like this, says the word, spells the word, says the word. And I said, well, son, you can sit down. Great job. Yeah. And the kids go, so about that time, manners are, the girls go out first, so I open the back schoolroom. They are heading out, I thought. No, they're all behind me. I release the boys. They're all behind me. They want to talk to me. I didn't realize that. So he walks up, and he just kind of saunters up, and he goes, Miss Cindy, I only got one serious question for you. And I said, well, young man, I'll give you the most serious answer I know today, I promise you. And he said, well, where do I have to move to go to this here school every day?
Oh, wow.
And the
thing is what's
tears.
wrong with the teacher that she cannot get across to that student?
She was crying when we got done with what I'm telling you. And so then all the kids are like, can you play with us at recess? Could you talk to us when we go outside? Tomorrow, would you be our friend and go do this? And the young boy goes, well, I'll think about it. Yeah. One of the exciting things here, too, is a pole. They tried to keep as much of this as original when they preserved it. This original pole dating to 1858.
Really?
Yeah, so it would be a piece. A lot of the
It
other
was in
pieces,
here when the first pony rode out.
When a pony rode out. Then they built
now,
some
did these guys already had a trail basically planned as far as where
they went a lot of the Oregon-California trail, but they had to find a house. So if it deviated, it was because they had to find a property for a relay or a home station.
But there wasn't somebody that rode it first and marked it all, like Jim Bridger rode it first and marked it out?
See, they had 5 division guys. So those division guys, each one set their divisions up.
Okay.
So Russell, Majors, and Waddell hired a general superintendent, and then he hired the 5 division guys.
Okay.
And then this horse goes back to Wyeth Industries. Why? Because Wyeth Industries is here selling the saddles, the wagons, and all the stuff, and the goods, and all the wares to head to where? California, Oregon. So this was 1880, and I tell the kids, we had a brown one and we had this one. The guy gave us this one here in town, so we took it in because that thing was a $6,000 horse made out of complete wood in Italy by an 80-year-old man. So
this is a really cool piece too. You've got it's all wood, planks and pieces.
Real hair, and it has a kind face, you know. It's just really fun. And this one's big and stout, but you know, so if this is the last saddle on here that was made for competitions for like horse shows and stuff. Their grandson Hootie rode, his real name is Houston, but he said, it's been in a barn, I want it here. So he's brought it, I had it preserved. A lady came up that deals with saddles and took care of it. But let's say you put brown on him, you don't like it. So then you might go over to the brown horse and say, I want to put a black on it. Then you would decide on your saddle and bridle.
Okay.
So that was their marketing. This is 1880.
Well, we were just at the Wyeth Mansion yesterday and took a tour there, and they have a horse with a Wyeth saddle on it there also.
Because it's the other one.
So he must have had several.
Well, because the horse that they have is the one that was here.
Oh.
We took it back.
Okay.
Because we had it here.
Theirs was the brown horse then.
Yep,
and then you found the wood horse to put in here. Well, the wood horse, I have to say, is actually cooler.
It is. And then you can kind of see that we have a tack room and harness shop because it would have been required. How we have one of the first early medicine bits, how you would have, if I was a blacksmith, I probably learned a trade. So I knew how to mix a few tonics, give your animal something, but the bit would go in the horse's mouth, the hole would be there. You pour the tonic in. And so that was for some of the first medicine.
Whoa, now this looks like a bridle.
It is.
And the bridle has a funnel on the side of it.
Yes.
And it has holes drilled in the bottom part of the bit.
Mouthpiece bit.
And you could put your medicine in there, and the horse would end up, and they end up playing with their bits anyway, so they'd end up swallowing it.
Yep.
Wow.
And then we were told, the Virginia Institute sent us this ahead of 2010, said they felt like it had been carried by the Pony Express rider, and it was our 150th anniversary. They said, we want you to put it in your exhibit. So we put it here. I don't really publicize it a lot because I don't want to get it stolen.
Right.
So,
and then you have several different saddles. What was the saddle of choice for the
Hope saddle.
The Hope saddle.
We got some in here to show you.
Okay, we'll describe that. I was wondering if they were maybe riding the McClellan or...
No, because a McClellan is some of these. So you'll see this is a military, that's McClellan. Then there is a saddle here, the brown one.
Right.
And then we got into what they call the Jennifer saddle, which is a military one. So.
And none of those have horns like what most people are used to seeing.
No, because you're seeing the saddle horn. So all of that came on the next piece, which is the Hope saddle.
Okay.
And then when you step into here, this is when you get into, this was the original opening in 1959.
Okay.
Now you step into it, this is 1993.
You built this edition on.
1.7, they put this $1.7 million edition. Yeah, you got to jump over if you do it right. Yep.
Wow.
And so we really try to tell the story of the westward, showing the trails, the things across the way, how St. Joe was known as the jumping off point. There was a building up the street. It was called the Blue Town Tavern. They were tearing it down. They said, Cindy, go get what you want. On the walls was the genuine wainscoting, ceiling floors. We took it all, used Dawn dishwashing liquid, power washed it, cleaned it, put a little lacquer on it, and made our barns.
Okay.
So we made cases out of them. So our museum is built with the proper aged material.
Then you have a buffalo.
We do.
That's pretty much a full-size fiberglass, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And it's got a picture of a stagecoach being pulled across the side of it. This is cool.
Yeah, because what they did is my board president and his wife and friends went up to the Dakotas, and this was an auction piece. And so Dick's like, well, we got to have this. Bignon goes, well, just buy it. I want it. So they buy it, not realizing, so this is the Pony Express, but this isn't on it, okay?
Okay.
So the artist comes up and he goes, well, Mr. Deshawn and Mrs. Deshawn, what do you think? And Dick said, well, it's pretty cool, but you don't got a pony rider on it. She said, what do you mean? Well, you said it's Pony Express. This isn't Pony Express. This is Pony Express.
Right.
So she drove the long distance. Now the story is he gets in a car. That's how he got up there. So he said, Bignon, I don't know how we're going to get this thing home. You know, it's on wheels. We can't pull it down the interstate. And she said, that is a problem, Nick. So he said, I got to go to the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom. On the wall is Hilliard Industries, St. Joseph, Missouri. His best friend is JR. So he calls up JR. He said, JR, I have this buffalo I need you to haul back to Missouri. He said, Dick, have you lost all your mind? No, JR, I promise you it's on wheels. Dick's on wheels, I'll bring it. So Hilliard's brought all the buffalo down here to us.
Wow.
You know, so it's really kind of significant because it does talk about what westward expansion was about. And I tell people, you know, she made this. She made the buffalo and then she painted it.
Wow.
And a friend came and told me, she said, well, this belonged to my grandfather, my grandmother, given to my dad, and I have it, and my husband's passed away. I've got to go to a home. So I want to know if you will put my friend here. I said, what? He said, Lobo. I said, well, let's put Lobo on the wall. So a lot of times when the kids come in, I'll say good morning to Lobo. Lobo would really like to talk to you today, or good afternoon, and tell Lobo, have a great day. Okay? Hope you go out and do something fun.
And
you
it's
know.
a really nice wolf rug that's
It is.
hanging on the
It
wall.
is.
Yes.
And then behind it really tells the story of how they tried to do the steamboats and all the camels and all of this stuff that didn't work, and then how the idea, and it's really funny because when you do this, and you know with kids, you have to think about them. And I said, what do you guys think? And this kid goes, well, that green one's pretty slow. That yellow one's pretty good, but that red one, well, Cindy, that's going to win. I said,
Yeah.
well, who do you think that is? I said, what are we talking about? He goes, oh my heavens, that's a Pony Express. And I'm like, yeah, because you see the steamboat, they tried it. They walked through Panama. This has taken 3 or 4 months. How long do you want to wait on your news and your mail, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Do you get it really like quick? Yeah. Well, that's what you want to know.
And
So-
this is a big map that has North America, South America. You've got probably in semi-real time, or not real time, but in simulated
Somewhat.
real time.
Yeah, pretty much.
The Pony Express, the Santa Fe Trail is the lower one, correct?
Yep, it is.
And the Santa Fe Trail, and they weren't running Pony Express on the Santa Fe Trail, were
But
they?
they did run some on the stagecoach on the Santa Fe, but it was so slow and sluggish, and people stole everything. The mail never made it.
Okay.
So it would have been a piece of it.
And from when she started talking, we've been done with the Pony Express and the Santa Fe Trail for quite a while. This ship is now just barely hitting Peru.
Yeah.
And it's still got quite a while to go before it gets the mail to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's why you have the risk takers, which would be the Russell, the Majors, and the Waddell guys. And you know, I talk about how he's the contract man, he's the field man, and this guy over here, well, he's the money man. They called him the financier, okay?
Okay.
So in Kansas City, a guy come in ahead of 2010 and said, Sydney, what do you know about that William Waddell? I said, well, I don't know a whole lot other than he's a money man. He said, well, the story in the newspaper, and I read it, said, he went home and said, you know, I'm a partner with the Russell, Majors, and Waddell. Yes, I know that, she said. And he said, well, he's going to do something called something called the Pony Express. I don't know. We've made money all along, but I'm not sure we're going to make money this time. I don't really know. But, you know, I have to do it. And she said, I don't like it. So he says, so I tell the boys, he goes, well, honey, what would make you happy? She said, put $100,000 in bank in my name, and I just don't really care what you do. So I always say the smart one in that group must have been her.
Now,
you know?
did the Pony Express make money, or did it
No,
end up
they
losing?
went bankrupt. Yeah, pretty much, because they were shut down for 6 weeks, and then all the different factors that come in, you know, some of the writers they probably owed, and then when the instant message got there, they moved on. But they'd made money. I mean, who else ever had 1,000 oxen or more, and how many wagons?
Right.
Renting them and doing. They came out of Leavenworth. They were wealthy. They were very wealthy when they came out of Richmond and that area. So
Okay.
we kind of try to tell the story here about the contract. We have a picture that really shows St. Joseph. And I tell the kids, you know, you got to remember, Joseph Rubidoux came here because his father sent him from St. Louis. And when he got here, he stopped at this little frontier town we refer to it as. And you're like, I really like it here. But my dad said, so what did he have to do? He went on up to the Iowa and up that direction. And he becomes he was a great trapper. So story is that they funneled enough money, and if I understood it correctly, $6,000, and told him to leave and never returned. So they wanted him to go. So he comes back to St. Joe because what? The Black Snake Hills, because those are caves.
Oh.
And those excited him, so he said, I'm coming back. So he's the one that actually settled St. Joseph and figured out, him and the postmaster figured out how to sell the plots, sell the lots. And so that's when St. Joe then became the city that as you know it today. But I always tell the kids, take a look. See, they're doing their laundry there. Do you see that?
Right.
And there's the first county seat. It's still here today. That's the
Okay.
first church. Still stands today. So I said, you know, you have to think about it. The elevation from St. Joe is a river's down here. You go up and you start going just like this. That's how the city is. And if you go to one of the major places that's now a nursing home or a home for people that want assisted living, you're looking down at the river. It is the most awesome thing. And I have to tell you, we sent this because you can tell I painted this. I started painting and boxing it. So I wanted this to look really good because I had wrote a grant and asked the Questers women to help me put optimum glass. Now, you can hammer it, you can do anything you want. You won't get to my painting, okay? I had the proper dust material, all the stuff redone on the back. And so I found out this was put on the wall with cord around. Okay, does that work very well? And the answer is no.
Oh, okay.
So when I take the cord around off, I got to do something. So I call up my preservationist. She said, Cindy, it's going to take $2,000 to clean it, another $1,000 to frame it. I said, I'll find the money. Just do it. So we find the money. We're bringing it. I've got my painting all done, got all ready to go. And I'm in here. Well, there's a nursing home in here, and this lady's in a wheelchair. And she said, Cindy, what are you doing? I said, well, ma'am, I'm getting ready to hopefully go hang this on the wall and put it up. She goes, ladies, get your wheels. Let's go. Come on, we're coming up here. So all the ladies are up here, and I put it up on the wall. And she goes, I said, what do you think, ma'am? She said, you know, my granny told me that green was green, but that has to be the greenest green I've ever seen in my entire life. I said, well, ma'am, it's his original colors, because when you clean them, and they paint these, a lot of times they painted them on a canvas for steamships. And that's what, so then all the paint, if they're really good, they don't miss the dots.
Wow.
So we got that hung, and so every time I think about it, I think about that green is a green, you know? And then this wagon used to be stuffed around the corner, and we had an idea to move it here and butt it up, take the old fence out. And I said, I want to do a thing where people can walk up and see inside the wagon, because you can't see anything, okay?
Covered wagon's always been a mystical thing.
Yeah, so I said, but before we do, I want you to meet my friends, Peanut Butter and Jelly, okay?
A couple of oxen in yoke.
You see, you don't have enough money to shoe yours, so we're going to tell a little friend over here, the oldest boy, that he's going to cut skin, he's going to get the grease, and every time we stop, he's going to put it on here, okay? And now Dad said, you know, it's been 2 weeks and I don't think I can eat any more things. I'm going hunting, son. Now you're in charge. So you have to learn the words, so I make him go, nah, nay, whoa. So then when they learn it, so they come up and then we talk about it and I say, okay. So now, does this dude have a really keen sense of smell, or does he have a keen sense of eyesight? Well, he has a keen sense of smell. He can smell water, but he doesn't know the difference between good water and bad water. So you have to know, but follow the trail. Follow the guy in front of you, because 5 miles away, if he smells it, he's dead ahead. You'll never turn him. Doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what you do. The important part to learn was, why did they leave out of St. Joe late April, 1st of May? Because they didn't carry feed for the oxen, they ate the grass.
Right.
Then I always tell the girl, and your job is, okay, now I want you to get me some cow patties. And I kind of look and I said, well, they call it the south end of this oxen over here, but get the dry ones. And they go, really? I said, there's no trees in Kansas. If you want to start a fire, you better have some cow patties. And they go, okay, Cindy. You know, so it's that really education that, hey, you know, this is for real. And my latest addition was to take the old leather that was 30 years old and bring in some acrylic that looks like leather, and now you can clean it. And it just brightens the place up. So this just went in February 20th.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you've got several different dioramas here.
There's 8 different states they went through.
Okay. And each one of these represents the different states. So the first one has a side wheel ship that's docked.
The ferry boat. That's how you got across to Kansas territory.
Okay.
And I actually
you've got some wagons and
and I met the
horses.
Ebenezer family, and so you paid for your horse, you paid for your wagon, you paid for your animals, paid for whatever you went across. And if you look up here to look in the wagon, the kids go, Cindy, we like the wagon, but we can't see in it. So I had to have a step made up.
So they
and
can
then
see
I said, what doesn't fit in there? Well, I have a toaster with extension cord, and now I put a box of crackers. So they have to find what doesn't fit.
Right. That's a fun interactive there.
It is. And then as you come through, then there's the different things for the weather. Behind you, if they have time, this is Doug Hansen. I went with Okta and asked them to help me make a video that talks about what, okay? How there's a wagon, the wheel, why was it important, what was all the deals about it. And so if they have time, they get to listen to it. He muted it, so he thought he would want it. But so it's really kind of fun just to do it. And then, you know, you come up here and
you've got the edge of civilization, which is the Kansas territory, which is definitely flatland, a few trees and a little stable.
And now what happened to the weather?
It looks like
a storm, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so what is it going to do to my bison? Buffalo. It's going to stampede them. So as a pony rider, this is when I want my bandana back, put it on me, and I want to get to the outside edge where I'll get trampled under.
Right. And so we've got a picture of what's that landmark?
Rock.
Chimney Rock. Thank you. And you've got thousands of buffalo down here with a rider in front.
Yep.
And then we've got South Pass,
Yep.
which would be in Wyoming.
Yeah.
We got Nebraska, you got Kansas, Nebraska, now you got Wyoming. The wagons are circled on the Platte River.
Yep.
And or Sweetwater River, I'm not sure which one of the two.
Right.
And you've got some oxen on the other side of the river, and they're having a dinner. Got their fire going. Then you get into Salt Lake. Now, that had to have been a horrible part of the trip.
Can you imagine?
No.
Wow.
The salt flats out there are just unbelievable. But you've got the salt flats, you've got the Wasatch Mountains, and another stage stop or horse stop.
This would be a home station.
A home station.
So
okay.
really showing how they might have had chickens. He did find a well, you know, and the rider comes in and he stays here. So they make sure they have the accommodation to do that.
Okay. And now, the Oregon Trail did not cross Utah.
No, I don't think so.
But the Mormon Trail, and I think, well, I don't know, that's kind of where the Donners ran into problems, was when they were going through Utah.
Yeah.
Pony Express probably made it a lot faster.
Yeah, but see, we had trouble because the Indians wanted our ponies.
Right.
So this is the story of Pony Bob that I told you about at Friday's station in Bucklands.
Okay.
Yep.
And so this is another picture of the Utah territory. And again, it's flat with mountains off in the distance.
Yep.
And then we've got the snowy Sierras going up over the mountains into, probably from Nevada up over the top into
Sierra Nevada, into California.
Sacramento.
Yep. Yep.
And this picture has a muddy, gunky trail that comes on up, and then you see them going into the snow with, I'm assuming, Lake Tahoe off to the side.
Could
but
be.
I don't know.
Don't know either, but it kind of looks good.
Right.
I've been there. That's pretty nice.
These are really neat, and it shows the cross section so well.
Exactly. And then if you come in here, they researched it, and I went to a convention in Colorado, and a guy said, well, my name's David Mead, and I used to work at the Pony Express because I had introduced myself as a Pony Express. He built this.
Oh, really?
So him and another guy, when they opened this in 1993, researched it and did it and built it. So,
and this is kind of a log cabin stage,
this would be a switching station.
Switching station. It's got a table, it's got a fireplace, some cornmeal, flour, bunk beds, and this is where they would stay by themselves when they showed.
And it was called Sleep Tight and Don't Let the bed bugs bite. So
right.
They would cinch up the ropes and check out their straw.
And when she says cinch up the ropes, the bed has ropes going across for your springs, which probably wasn't overly comfortable because no matter how you slept, you were in between the strings.
Exactly. And there's not much but straw down there, so it's pretty
And now,
simple.
who supplied these?
They would bring them. They would bring the supplies, and that's when I told you I brought you a barrel of water. Don't know when I'm coming back. Brought you all the supplies I have. Then you got to make do.
And how often did these cabins get raided by the Indians and the supplies taken?
Just depended on what was going on.
Wow. So you could show up here and end up with nothing to eat for 2 days until your pony came back the other direction.
Well, but see, it would only be the station keeper. So the pony riders went on and took his horse. Because here all you're going to do is open it up, sign his mochilla, his way bill, and send him on his way.
Okay.
And you'll wait for the other guy because they're crossing across the country. So you're waiting to help him because what you've done is get your horse broke, get it ready. So when he comes, all he's got to do, because here's the Hope saddle, as you can see it.
Okay.
And so you can see how primitive it was.
Boy, that looks so comfortable.
Yeah.
It actually looks like a lot like a McClellan that's got a strap of leather going up over the top where
Pretty
the
much
center parts.
with a horn.
And there is no padding.
No.
There is a horn.
That's why I think they hoped it got some more padding.
Yeah, no doubt. And then you were able to put your saddlebags that carried the mail, your mochilla.
Yep.
Since I'm learning new words, you were able to put your mochilla over it, which almost made it look more like a Renaissance festival.
Exactly. Style.
What are they? Jousting horse.
Jousting horse.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it reminds you of.
Yeah, it almost looks armored or something.
And so when you put 2 kids on it, and then you tell them, to do it. We did a thing at day camp, and we had a thing where if you put it on here, you would time you. Well, they were doing 12 seconds, 11 seconds. Well, one girl got 9. Well, one of them didn't win. So I always say, if you go to day camp and you wear that shirt, you're going to get in free. whoever comes with you, you're the tour guide, and they're free, but you better do a good job. I'm just telling you. And so I get a phone call with one of my board members. She said, Cindy, what in the world did you do at day camp? I said, I don't know, what are you talking about? She said, well, my friend's been at the museum an hour, and her granddaughter's trying to figure out how to beat 9 seconds on the mochilla. I said, oh, they timed them. Time they got on till the time they moved it and did it. Well, she finally called. She got 8 seconds, so she was a happy person finally.
And then you've got a little display here on Buffalo Bill's Wild West and Congress of Rough Riders
he
of the
was
World.
one of the first exhibits. We felt that Buffalo Bill helped perpetuate the Pony Express with all the Wild West, hiring all the pony riders, doing all the stuff. So our idea was to do what? Tell his story. And it was down that gallery. And what we did was then took it all down and decided to do what was to bring it into here, because this was the original rider's case.
Okay.
And when they opened this in 1993, that was the information about riders.
He was kind of larger than life, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And he was pretty, he did a lot of fun things. The one thing I liked about him is, he didn't miss a beat to have a good time.
Or to toot his own horn.
Exactly. And so what the kids told me is they wanted to jump rocks to get down here to the water. So when they're doing this in 1989, they did 17 digs. Well, the very first one, they left the archaeological dig open. So we have a dig in this museum left open.
Okay.
This is the 17th dig. So all of a sudden they said, man, this thing's about 21 feet deep. And this lady said, well, I found rock, I found brick. And they said, oh, we found it all along. She said, I said serious rock and serious brick. So when they got done, they put 4 rows of brick on it, and it's 21 feet. And if you pump it, okay,
right,
it goes into the trough, goes in my drain, goes back into the well, and feeds right back in and just recirculates.
So you've got a
the
great big
answer
hand
is,
pump.
Yep, it's a free hand pump. And what we also know is that, during flood times, does this thing come up? The last flood, I had about 18 inches to go before she would have come
really? Before
over.
it came over the
Yeah.
top?
So I called my board president and I said, is there any chance this thing's ever overflowed? He said, well, Cindy, not to my knowledge. And I said, well, I got news for you. You're going to be my first phone call. I tell you that.
And they've got a window next to the pump that you can look down the
21 feet.
21 feet, so you can see the water down there in the bottom.
But if we're going to do this, should we tell you the truth? Well, here's how we're going to do it. So what we put over here in the case was, the research says, what did they find in the bottom of the well? When they capped them off, what did they put? Pennies.
Pennies.
So the penny is dated 1881. Water came to St. Joseph in 1880. Missouri Water came to St. Joe. They abandoned the well by throwing all the stuff in it. The minute that they started bringing stuff out of it, Jim Watkins said the water started filling up.
Really?
And then the first dig remained water in it for about 18 months until it started dissipating and find a pathway to this well.
And then they kind of used it as a dump.
Yeah.
After that, and just
That's
filled
what
it
they
full
did.
of
They
stuff.
threw, yeah.
Wow. And so you've got stuff that actually came out of the bottom of the well here?
Yep, exactly. All
Which
these
is a little
pieces.
kid's tea set, lamp, chimney, which is interesting that didn't break being dropped down there,
Well,
along
I think
with
there is
another
a little
glass
piece.
dish.
Some of them they kind of put back together, but the
Oh.
story of the dishes we're being told is it was the early marketing. So you might be on your horse with the different samples all over it. Well, the wagon's behind you. So you're going to sell what they want. Give them the little dishes. The wagon comes up. You're going to say, bye-bye, there's their dishes. So they already have the little dishes because they figured out which color they wanted, what they wanted.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons we've been told.
And then they drop them down the well.
Yeah. And so when they didn't need them, they put them down the well.
Interesting.
And then this is the very first program that Buffalo Bill ever did. Buffalo Bill, always a week to 10 days ahead of coming to the next city, he always sent out a program that said, I am coming.
Okay.
So you knew to get your money ready, get ready, bring your family.
And there's a lot of pictures here from the Wild West show.
Yes.
You've got Annie Oakley's picture, you've got Buffalo Bill, you've got some of the original riders, it looks like.
Those
some of the
were guys
Scouts
that
of the
went
Prairie.
on stage.
Okay.
They wrote, some of those were some of the guys that did some stuff on stage here in St. Joe. And then if you find this one, this is what its actual one looked like. So you can see that he actually brought a chief engineer, he had his fireman, his engineer, he had the horses, he had the mess hall, the horse tents, he brought all his native, you can see all of their
Right.
lodges. And then at night, they set this all up, but he had his own electricity. So when I did it at night, I made electricity so you could watch my show.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty ingenious.
Well, and the thing that's amazing is he hauled this all over the world.
Yeah, and it took
The
3
whole
trains.
show.
It took 3 trains. And to serve one day's meal, I tell this, a cast of 500 required 1,000 pounds of meat, 900 loaves of bread, 100 cabbages, 20 bushel of potatoes, 90 pounds of butter, 250 dozen eggs, and other necessary items. And it took nearly a half an acre to just put that mess tent up.
Wow.
So it's kind of incredible when you think about his story.
A half-acre mess tent.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
And so this would be the general superintendent, Benjamin Franklin, who worked for the Russell, Majors, and Waddell. And then these are the division guys, the 5 of them, that led these different divisions. So they divide, much like I say, corporations today.
Right.
It's divided up.
Different
know?
franchises and
Yeah. And I think the most important thing is to realize that when the telegraph is coming, and we know Abraham Lincoln becomes president, they want to get this message, because who wants to know it more than anybody else? California.
Right.
Well, they know it's going to take a long while, so they said what we'll do is we'll telegraph it so far. Every man for 6 miles gets a new horse, okay? And when we get into here, what are we going to do? We're going to telegraph it and send it. 7 days, 17 hours. So the combination of a horse and the instant message got his address across the country in 7 days and 17 hours.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Especially when now we think 35 seconds, well, a second,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
You can text message something. But when everything is all mechanical, hand written, walking delivered, horse delivered, or telegraph, I guess, because it's in its infancy.
Yep.
It's just.
And then we have 3 of the murals that were in the Hotel Rubidoux. This one just got recently finished in October. She came and cleaned it right on site. So this is a steamboat canvas. It does have 2x4s. It had 2 2x4s down through the middle. And those 2x4s were leaning on it and really making, you can almost see an indication down through it. Well, she hired my guy. He came in and cut that back, fixed it, cleaned it. She did 5 swipes of black, I call it. Now this guy's got a beard, okay? This guy, we didn't even really know he had an arm or a hand. And it was just incredible, the colors, because they come back to full life.
And this is a restored painting.
Yep.
This thing's probably 8 foot by 8 foot. It's got soldiers riding with their swords out. You've got guys hiding behind a cannon with their rifles and their pistols out. It's a Civil War scene, and it's really an impressive painting.
And the thing of it is, it talks about how M.J.F. Thompson was a mayor of St. Joseph, and how he embarks, and what's he going to do? He goes and says, okay, I'm going to quit, I'm going to go and work. So he becomes known as the Missouri Swamp Fox. He becomes a brigadier general for the Confederate Army. And one family that's back in this hallway mustered up from Sturtsville, Missouri to DeKalb County to come meet up. Right, I have the papers. It says, go meet up with M.J.F. Thompson. That's who you're going to ride with.
Wow.
So it's just incredible how the men and the stories start just totally linking. Yeah. Connecting. And behind it here, we like to talk about Abraham Lincoln and show the kids, a real McCoy. So what we do is we have the place, because, nothing is animated and nothing is digital.
Right.
So you got to learn how they did their mail. So if I'm going to hand cancel mine, I always tell them you got to rocker it, and then you stamp it and send it on its way, and that's the Carmen Pony. And that's real ink, so be careful because it will get on you, okay?
Okay, now I got a question as long as we're talking about this. Quite a few, probably 10 years ago or so, we had a Pony Express reenactment in our community, and we rode something like 30 miles from one town, or maybe it was 50 miles from one town to another. And for $2 or $3, we were able to get an envelope that was actually stamped Pony Express with the name of the town that it started out from, and then it would be delivered at the mailbox on the other end. And so you could have an actual Pony Express delivery. Now, did they run anything like that out of this facility?
Yes, on our 2010, we had horses out here. I sold you a letter. You put it in an envelope. We hand canceled it. The pony rider took it to the post office. The post office then mailed it.
And that's all done through the Postal Service.
Yeah, and they did it then at the time. And it's funny because I sent myself one. I call up the postmaster and I say, hey, buddy, I thought you were going to set them aside and have them hand canceled besides ours. And he goes, and I could hear his dead silence. I go, what happened? He goes, I think they're still sitting there. I said, well, you're worse than the Pony Express because you're already at 10 days. So I highly suggest you find them bags and get them mailed. So,
but that's something I think that they still do every once in a while.
Well, no, they do it every year.
Okay.
So last year it left out St. Joe, but they don't do it till June. I met the actual guy who did it in 1960, leaving out of here. He was still living when I went to work here. And so he told me his story, gave me some video, and talked about how they did that ride across the country. The problem is a lot of it is on private land, so you've got to have easements and proper stuff. So a lot of the landowners, you might bid on their land to ride across it, making money for that association. So.
Okay, and then you've got some of your telegraph
and there's the rams hook
displays here, the ram's hook, and then you've also got the wooden covers over the glass insulators, and you've got a couple of glass insulators in here.
Yep, and the telegraph.
Yeah, that's a neat display.
You know how they always talk about you should recycle? Okay, so when the telegraph came down, they made barbed wire out of it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, the recycle.
There was miles of wire.
Yeah,
Why not?
Why not turn it
But
into
they didn't have a throwaway society like we do now.
No.
They reused absolutely everything.
Yep. And then this is another one that...
another mural, big mural. This one here is probably
huge.
12 foot by 6 foot.
Because it's actually at the back of the bar at the Hotel Riverdale. And it actually, I tell the kids, find the turtle, find the snake, find the butterflies. None of this was visible. It was completely... one of the worst she said she'd ever cleaned, but once she started cleaning it, then all the color. And she said you can tell a good artist, this man doesn't miss a lick of paint in all three of them. She said he is top notch.
Wow.
In what he does.
And this is a
mural. Yep.
Mural of, it looks like treaty signing somehow or another.
Well, it's actually the Platte Purchase because you see Missouri became a state in 1820, okay? But the Missouri River changes. So they want to acquire this. So in 1836, we got proclaimed in 1837, Platte, Buchanan, Andrew, Holt, Nottoway, Atchison all become Northwest Missouri.
Okay.
Otherwise, we were a straight state.
And it was a treaty or a purchase with the Native Americans.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a cool picture.
And it's got President Van Buren proclaimed the purchase and completed it in 1837. And the first time I did this, a lot of times I went after, because I heard about this, where if you got a grant and you did it and went to these energy lights, they would give you a rebate. So all I had to do was raise $10,000 to get $12,000. So I raised $10,000, changed all my bulbs out, got a $12,000 credit for almost a year's worth of electricity. But at the same time, these are warm bulbs, so they take this color and radiate it to you. So
really?
Eyes, yeah, so these are warm lights. You can do warm or cool, and because of the coloring, we did the warm lights.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got another
This is the
dig.
very original dig.
Okay, and
So
what all did you find in here?
Well, if you go look on the corners, you will find, it tells you all the items from the past. It shows you the pictures of the man who did it. It shows the foundation. It shows that we had a fire. And they bricked it. So what they did is they went to the inside. So Mike Fisher said, he told me, Cindy, they had a wood building and they bricked it on the inside and then tore the wood off.
Oh.
And then what they did, because St. Joe is a soft town, the brick turned the opposite direction, or called the toy soldier row, because otherwise this brick would have no strength, it would be saggy.
Okay.
So that's how they made the massive roof to put it on. So,
and this is probably 15 by 15 wood rail around it, and you can look down into the dig. It goes down probably 3 or 4 feet into the ground, and they have some of the artifacts sitting in the bottom that they found.
And then you can identify
a monkey
them.
wrench or blacksmith tongs, axle-like piece of iron, square nails, horseshoes, lots of different things. So the blacksmith shop must have been set up back in here
Very
someplace.
close, and then you're going to know that, see, this is the actual dirt, then the concrete's over here. So then this is actual. So he told me that the white means this is undisturbed ground. So when they left it. So the guys that did this we're talking 1989.
Okay.
So a lot of them were either deceased in a nursing home, or the one guy that was going to come help me broke his foot and had a boot on it. Well, you actually have to put a ladder in here, go down in, and you take a paintbrush and you clean it off so you make sure you don't miss anything. See that plate over here?
Right.
That was never obvious before, but enough dirt's fallen off. We can see it. We actually had a Civil War bullet fall out about 4 years ago.
So things are still revealing themselves.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, that is cool.
That's right. Yep. And so now what we're doing is I talked to him and we decided, I said, well, what if I got distilled water, which doesn't have the calcium and other stuff in it, if I spray it? So now I bring a sprayer yesterday, spray this, trying to keep it from falling in again like it. This one was really bad. The Clevenger right here, that wasn't even visible. It had so much dirt, it had fallen all around it.
Wow.
And on February 20th, I wanted this thing to be showy, so I had to figure out how to get it done with no help. So that's what I did.
Huh.
And then it shows you the actual how they dug them, so you know it's
Right.
here. So it's quite a feat, you know, because they did do 17 squares of them. So
Wow.
it was a pretty interesting little deal. And behind you is the first mural, and if you come down here, you will actually see it posted into the Hotel Roumedou from 1938 until 1977. It was behind the bar. That's why it was a fright. And here's the other one down here. So the smoke spit tobacco.
Oh, and this is a map of the United States, along with all of the forts and the Indian tribes.
And all of the pathfinders or pioneers, all the different trails are on here. So if you look at it, it'll tell you which one's which. But I tell the kids, look at the stars, because that's where the Pony Express stopped.
And
did
this
their
this
thing.
is 25 feet long, and again 5 or 6 feet tall. It's amazing, and they were able to restore this to this.
Well, it was
That
in
is
the
just-
hotel. It went to the bank. The bank didn't want it. They put it in the basement. This was coming up, and Tom Duggins was still living at the time, talked to me, and he said, Cindy, what they did is they put it down this hallway right here and put a sheetrock piece in it with peepholes, and people for a year and a half until I got it clean watched me clean it, because he said I could only clean 18 inches at a time with 6 chemicals to get it off. Now today
Wow.
they make something you can wipe on it, but he's not then.
That is
So
amazing.
now it's preserved, and he hung it, and I think it's just incredible.
It is. Wow,
Yeah.
it shows all the different migrations.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
detailed map
is.
without being cluttered. That's the thing that's
Exactly.
amazing, is you can read it because it's so big,
Exactly.
and it's not all cluttered and
Right.
wow.
And then this had been a dream since 1993. What happened to the writers? Where were they at? Where did they come from? Well, we didn't have any information. So after 2010, and like 182 people came that were related to the Pony Express, we sent them a letter in 2015 and said, hey, if we want to do something called the Hall of Writers, what do you have to help us? Instantly,
Oh.
22 families sent us the information you find down here. This is Mabel Loving, the later that we found out about her book. And as you can see, even in 1923, if they'd asked Mabel, she had the letter that the guy wrote to Mabel Loving that said, I saw the Pony Express, Johnny Fry left out the stable doors.
Wow.
So now one of the writers writes that when he gets down there, he changes out of his jacket and his clothes. When he comes back, Billy Richardson had moved the mochilla to another horse, but he put it back on. So that's where the story got all embellished.
Huh.
So kind of fun.
And so
behind
this is all of the histories of different
Different
writers
ones.
that you were able to,
Yeah.
like
so we
Billy
tied them,
Fisher,
Billy
Patrick
Yep.
McKinney,
Yep.
Richard Cleve, Gigi
Sedavanti, yeah.
Okay.
And this one I like because he talks about, to Mabel, calls it my string telephone, because he put a rope between it because they just stole his horse. But he said, I fired my shots. I might have shot 6 of them, but guess what? I still got my pony. And then my idea was we took this fencing that was up there where you saw the wagon, and I built what are called barns, and then we wanted to do the 5 divisions. So where we told you up there were divisions, now we're telling you they're the ranches, they're the stations, they're the deserts, they're the homes. These are the military forts.
And you've got, at each one of these, you've got little flip ups that
Yep.
you can look up and see what did they eat? Chicken, peaches, potatoes, frioles, bread, eggs, and bacon. Where did they sleep? The Pony Express had their own building near the fort where the riders stayed. Fort Kearny did not allow the Pony Express on the grounds, so the station was about a mile to the west. The riders slept in bunks along with the station keepers and hostlers. And were other people there? Soldiers from the eastern United States, many of the soldiers at Western military forts such as Fort Laramie, were from Ireland, station keepers and hostlers. Wow.
Now this would
That's
be the last
neat the way that you have that all set up to
We
where you
like
can
it.
see.
Yeah, and it's all designed for children. And then back here, we wanted to really keep the section about Cody. And what we did is we have actual raw footage that they gave us from Cody, Wyoming, and Colorado, and they both said 1,000% Buffalo Bill perpetuated the Pony Express as you hear it today, because all of his riders and all the stuff kept telling the story. And so the guy came here from Colorado, and I said, man, I'm telling you. He said, well, Cindy, I have the actual diary. And he said, you know, the kings and queens said, why don't you come to Europe? He said, you got any money? And they said, we got lots of money. He said, well, I got to have me a couple of ships, bring all my stuff. So in it said, you know, you ever smell a seasick buffalo? You don't want to. So then he said, but I fixed it. If you put their feet up off of there, why, it's a perfect ride. So it's just really fun, some of the stories, and how a lady called me and said, do you have a Navy Colt revolver? I go, no, I don't. She said, well, I can put it to you in the mail tomorrow. I said, oh, man, that would be extremely good. So she mailed us that gun because her husband had it, said it belonged to George Washington, one of the Pony Riders, and the initials are under it. Some people don't believe it, but here's what I believe. My family left in 1840 from Amity, Missouri to go to California. They sent them with handwriting material, a Bible, a gun, and their wares. And that gun didn't matter who it belonged to because the family wanted them to have it more than them.
Right.
So they sent it with them. And then this family, I met the Strieper family. She came here and sang songs and talked to us about his story and what he did. But the most famous one we own is the one about Billy Fisher. So Billy Fisher's up here, and he writes a letter to who? Miss Mabel Loving, okay? And in it he said, well, I was getting so tired, you know. He said, the snow was hitting me in the face. I finally got off and said, I got to sleep, okay? If it had not hopped onto my lap and legs and scared me, the jackrabbit, my family wouldn't be here today. So then his great-grandson becomes an astronaut in 1985 and said, I want to take that into space with me. Well, there's a story behind that, because you see, in the first grade deportment, he had a really bad grade. So it goes home and says, I must meet your parents. So he tells us that his parents go and they come back and they go, Billy, you can't talk about the sun, moon, and stars anymore. You're disrupting her class. Well, I'm going to do it. So she just, well, think about it. Go, no, no, no. Dad said, you got to stop. He said, well, what if I just don't talk about it and she can hear it? He goes, well, okay, that'll work. Just don't get that department thing another time, okay? No, no, no. So he said, I'm waddling up to go up to my spaceship, and I go, guys, wait just a minute, wait. He goes, first grade teacher, I told you I was going to see the sun, moon, stars, but you're going to see it with me. So I like to tell the little stories that I've learned along the way.
And we love the backstories. That's what I like about the podcast is we get to go through a museum like this and get so much more feel.
Yeah.
And hopefully people listen and want to come see this as bad as they should.
Last November, I believe it was, William Page come in, and he said, my family's a pony rider. Well, he pulls out his phone. That's Bill. He's got all the pictures, all the same thing we have. He said, I didn't know this was here. He said, I'm coming through Kansas. And he said, a family member called up, and he said, well, you better go to the Pony Express. You're on top of it. There's stuff there about our family. Oh, you're kidding me. I didn't know that. So he walks in, of course it is, and he said, now do you see this where it says a Willie Handcart Company? 1/4 of it perished in the heavy snow. Well, you want to know what happened between those sentences? I said, yeah, what happened? He said, well, as they're going across, because they only had 125 pounds
right.
of stuff, but they had what you would call a scout team that went in front, and then they went, and then the scout team would come behind them, see if there were any survivors. Well, come to find out, all of a sudden, they don't have any food. We're down to either eating each other, or what are we going to do? So they said, we're going to go down the valley. So he gets down there, him and another guy, and they go, you know what? We need to go back up there, and we need to put a note that said, survivors in the valley. So they go up, and they're really busted, tired, come back down. No more than are there a few minutes, and here comes the scouts to save them.
Wow.
Otherwise, they would have been gone.
Wow.
So,
and I've been to that site where they camped out for the winter. That was another one of those.
Because they talk about their Blackfeet You know, and what I'm learning a lot about the Mormons from coming from Europe, they didn't swim. So that's how come when they were trying to go to Oregon and California, when they stopped and had to cross the river crossings, these people were a little paranoid. So they had to prepare them on how to breathe, how to get in the water, how to do it. That's why many of them got hurt or killed or drowned, is because they could not swim. So one kid said, I really like that display because I really like the hammers and the spikes. I said, well, good. So you try to do something that engages the children, lets them tell the story. And down here is Bronco Charlie. He is the youngest rider right here.
The 11-year-old?
Yep. And here it is at age 81. He delivers the mail between them.
Wow.
Tells his story. And he was the last one to die in 1955.
That's amazing.
And then we have the rider's oath and a gun and a Bible. And then we have the trail map down here. And then we have the guy, Henry Jackson, who designed this, because I wanted to tell his story. Because you know, it's fantastic when you think about all the things that are on it, all the details. So I wanted to make sure that people knew.
And Henry Jackson was an early photographer, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
And he's the one that took a lot of the...
And then Howard Driggs also helped. So he was the president of the Oregon Trail Memorial. So I have met this family several times, the Strickland family. They, too, had no idea this exhibit. This was in the original exhibit in that where Buffalo Bill was said. So we brought it in here. They have now brought us five land grants signed by 5 different presidents.
Wow.
This is a scroll, how you would do different things. They have sent us another piece over here. They just sent a few more pieces. So they just keep bringing and putting tin boxes and different things in here to tell the story.
Awesome. That's
it's just
awesome.
really fun, you know.
That's cool that the families are so involved.
Yeah. And then I'm kind of proud because this belonged to my great-great-grandfather, and he was a carpenter by trade. And so they said, we need a wood plane. And I said, well, you know, my grandpa gave me a Coca-Cola box, and my dad told me to keep it because there was something important in the Coca-Cola box that belonged to Grandpa Glenn's father. Well, it was the wood plane. So then I had a guy take a picture of it, go do it, so the kids would really understand what a wood plane is.
Wow.
So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's kind of evolved and morphed into, you know, telling the stories. And I feel like when people leave here, if I hear anything outstandingly is when they leave, the stories they tell, the people they bring back.
Right.
You know, and then the number of kids who were here in the 3rd grade, and they go, oh man, one guy said, my wife and I are arguing, you got to settle an argument. And I go, I don't know if I want to be that person. He said, yes, you do. And I said, okay, what am I doing? He said, well, I was here in the 3rd grade and there's nothing the same. I said, what year were you here? He said, well, 1979. I said, no doubt, because none of this was even here till 93 and 2000. He said, I told you so. She said, okay, I forgive you. And then he looked at me and he said, I am bringing my children and my grandchildren back to see what my 3rd grade experience was and why history can be important.
Well, the thing that's so cool about this museum is I thought I was coming to Pony Express exclusive, but yet I got to see a lot of Pony Express from the saddles to where the very first Pony Express rider took off from.
Yes.
I got to see the original stables, but on top of that, you've got your displays of the riders and details on their riding experiences. You've got your Buffalo Bill display. You've got your westward expansion area that has the wagon all decked out where you can walk up and look in and see exactly how it was set up, along with your buffalo and your oxen and the horses for the saddles. So you cover a lot of St. Joseph history, you cover a lot of western expansion, you cover the Pony Express in great detail. And then on top of that, you got the really cool school that everybody can come back and see. This is just an awesome place.
It's a good
and it's so
experience.
hands-on.
Yeah, and what we like is there's no sign that says don't touch.
Right.
Except the 1880, the Wyeth thing because of its age. But you know, the kids come in, and I was going to take these out because this was set up because during the COVID, you had to have zones, and we could only have so many people in here. So I zoned it so people would know which side to go on and which to come back. And so I just asked several people, I said, you know, the zones, I mean, do they tell anything? And they go, oh, Cindy, don't remove them because the children behave so good because they're like, no, you got to go over here first. Don't get over here because this is where they tell us to go. So the parents said, do not remove them. So I made them match the museum. So now
I think it would also help when somebody came in and said, my grandfather or great-grandfather was a Pony Express rider, and you say you can go to Zone 7 and find exactly what you're looking for.
Right, and at the same time, like if you, like a lot of times guys are retiring now, and they're doing a lot of genealogy. These two doctors researched their families and could prove that they're a pony rider, so now they have been added to the pony list at this museum. Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yep.
So you guys have a website. What is your website?
ponyexpress.org.
ponyexpress.org. You can't get any easier than that.
No, pretty easy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And this museum, I would highly recommend. This is a neat place. I appreciate you taking your time today with us, Cindy.
Yep.
I always finish out my podcast by saying the world is full of wonder. People need to get out and explore, and this section of history is so forward-thinking, so interesting, so in-depth, and I really appreciate your time, and everybody have an absolutely wonder-filled day.
Haul the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?